Moving forward, we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about some stuff outside of the UFC itself. Do you want to walk us through a couple of the
Sure.
topics we
Well,
have here?
one of the new organizations that's been making a name for themselves is the Bare Knuckle Boxing, I believe it's called.
Bare Knuckle FC.
FC, yeah. And I had the privilege of watching one of their fights, which came to as a shocker to me because a buddy of mine actually mentioned to me in the gym that Johnny Hendricks fought recently in Bare Knuckle Boxing or FC, and I did not even know. I hadn't heard of it. And peep this, he fought an ex-gay porn star.
His name's Dakota Cochrane,
Cochrane,
a.k.a. Cochrane.
A.k.a. Cochrane. I mean, you know, life is funny like that sometimes. But so yeah, this guy that, according to my opinion, has nothing, you know, that shouldn't be in the same ring as Johnny Hendricks, gets that opportunity because of this new Bare Knuckle FC league where they fight Bare Knuckle, and Johnny Hendricks lost in a pretty bad way. He got stopped by TKO. He got his nose broken, most likely. It was just bloodied up. And I didn't like seeing that. I didn't like seeing someone like Johnny Hendricks that was such a big name in the sport that I think unanimously kind of like the opinion is that he beat George St. Pierre a few years ago and he deserved the title. He got it later on. You know, he's just a great person, great fighter back in the day. And just seeing how his career kind of trailed off for him to be taking those type of fights, it's sad for me.
USADA ruined his career.
Yeah, that too.
His body changed. We saw it.
He missed weight how many times?
It changed. It changed everything.
Yeah.
I think. Well, one thing we don't understand the complete science of is the long-term ramifications for taking some of these substances that are now banned off of the USADA. And I think the main thing is certain guys' bodies, especially given their age and obviously their genetics,
right?
When you stop taking these things, different things can happen. We see sometimes it might be mood swings. Sometimes it might be this or it might be that.
See more and more of this.
I think for him, he couldn't control his weight anymore.
Yeah.
He stopped using whatever it was that he was that became illegal essentially.
That stuff makes you lean for sure.
And he stopped. His body almost just gave up on losing and keeping weight off. And I feel like he never really learned how his body reacted to the non-supplement type of aspect of it. That changed the physical composition of his body, which changed his psychology on how his perception of self was. His confidence dwindled. His performances were affected. He started becoming only looking at left-hand punches. He started getting KO'd and getting finished.
Slower. And
the thing is, the power is the last thing to leave you. Speed's the first thing to leave you. He was never extremely fast. He ended up in Bare Knuckle FC, and he lost to a gay porn star. And that's it. It is what it is. Dakota Cochrane just took him out.
Took him out. Like I said, I never thought that Johnny Hendricks' problem with his weight was in terms of like discipline so much, or he was just like eating and saying, fuck it, I have a fight like in a week and I don't care.
Right.
I don't think that was the case. I think it's exactly what you're saying. The stop of usage of some PEDs made him have a much harder time cutting that weight out. And his body probably had some imbalances, hormonal or whatever it might be. And I think that's it. I think it's sad, and I hope he figures it out. And I hope he doesn't fight in bare knuckle boxing anymore.
Yeah, that's not a good call, man. You just got smoked. You need to stop fighting in general.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, we look at a few of these guys who take some time off. Like GSP took a lot of time off right after USADA. He kind of knew. He's like, this isn't going to pop well. I'd rather not get up in the news. I'm just going to retire and stop for a while. So that was interesting. Again, his last fight was in middleweight for GSP, and we saw what his body looked like. He had to deal with colitis afterwards. He had some intestinal problems. He overate. Again, that weight, holding the weight off, maintaining your weight, being able to be healthy with that weight. Very interesting situation, but it is what it is, and hopefully that's the last we see of Johnny Hendricks in physical combat. I don't need to see that.
I absolutely agree with that. Speaking of bare knuckle boxing, I think that we should just mention that because it's been in the news for a little while. Artem signed with Bare Knuckle FC, and he's been looking for a fight for a while now, and I think it's official that he's fighting Jason Knight,
Former
another
UFC
former
fighter.
UFC fighter. Correct. What do you think about that?
I mean, Artem the Goat Lobov. Shout out to all the goats out here. I mean, living in the mountains and shit. Delicious curry goat. You should check it out. Go to a local Jamaican restaurant and get yourself some curry goat, some curried Artem Lobov. But no, actually, though, in all reality, Artem Lobov fighting in Bare Knuckle FC. He's just trying to make some money, and he knows that he can't be the biggest draw in the UFC. There's no way he ever can be. He's just not skilled enough. He's got a mouth. He runs it, and he knows how to run it well. He's got a following. People have a cult following. He is a living meme. There are goat memes on everything that has to do with Artem Lobov. This guy's as close to a 50-50 record in terms of wins and losses as you can get, and yet he somehow finds a way to market himself and make himself relevant. I respect the grind. So yeah, Artem Lobov has been grinding. He's one of those guys who always puts in that level of work, the requisite level of effort. He's coming in there and he is always going to make himself relevant by talking about himself and getting himself in the news and making himself buzzworthy. But at the end of the day, I mean, he's a meme. It is what it is, and it's funny, and we're going to watch. I'm going to watch.
Actually,
I'm going to look it up.
I feel like I'm going to watch that one.
Because why not? Like, who cares? This guy is one of Conor McGregor's favorite people in the world in terms of training partners and stuff. Like, what's your take on this?
I think because of his style too, just his reckless kind of like walk forward and throw from your hips kind of style that Artem has. I think it's interesting to watch because I think it's going to be a lot of blood and someone probably going to get knocked out. So in terms of that, I mean, as a spectator, I'm going to take a look at that one. Not unless you're going to become a bare knuckle boxing fan though. Not sure about that.
No, I'm good on that, man.
Yeah. So next we can talk about Roy Jones Jr. fighting Belfort in a dirty boxing fight, whatever that means. And maybe you can shed some light on that for us.
I'm about to sound off on this, man. Listen, 41-year-old Vitor Belfort wants to fight Roy Jones Jr. in a modified boxing match where dirty boxing is legal. I don't understand what the point of this is. Roy Jones Jr. is 50 years old, if you guys didn't know. Roy Jones Jr. used to be one of the best boxers of all time, period.
Check out his highlights on YouTube. Just
one of the best boxers of all time.
Go and check it out.
Hands down, no questions asked, top 5 if you want to be salty to the man. I think he's Mount Rushmore top 4. Vitor Belfort, legend of the sport. Entered when he was he like 20 or 21 when he first
started?
fought?
Yeah, very 19? Early on. This guy 19, 20, yeah.
He was throwing some... I remember he threw, what was it? It was like 17 punches in 14 seconds. Like, he was throwing bombs. And, like, this guy... This is UFC in the dark ages, okay, man? For Vitor Belfort, post-USADA, we saw what his body transformed from. We saw what happened with that. Roy Jones Jr., dude, you haven't been in a competitive boxing match in, I'm going to at least guess, at least 9 years.
Right.
I'm going to guess. I have no idea. I should have looked that up. But I'm here to talk about old guys coming and fighting in combat sports when the amount of health risk that you're putting yourself at. You're 50 years of age, having a 41-year-old guy, and 9 years makes a huge difference in terms of combat.
And at that age too, come on.
If you're talking about 20 versus 29, there's experience on his side.
Fine.
If you're talking about 25 versus 34, okay, a little bit more even. You're talking about 30 versus 39, we're already getting there where it's like, yo, buddy, you need to make me, like, that's not fair, but if you're DC, you'll be able to beat it.
Exactly.
It doesn't make a
in
difference.
some cases, it might work, but generally speaking...
41 versus 50 years old. Like, dude, this guy's like 10 years younger than my dad. I wouldn't want to watch my dad 10 years ago fighting in a cage.
Absolutely. Like, we saw Chuck Liddell get knocked out.
It kind of infuriates me that there isn't some kind of a thing in place in terms of, like, age restrictions on how old you need to be able to compete. You should not be allowed to compete after a certain amount of hours logged in the cage. You shouldn't be able after a certain amount of age that you are. There needs to be some regulations in this because we're going to see something that we don't want to see.
For sure,
that's going to mar combat sports.
Great point. This is not basketball. This is not a kind of no contact sport. This is brain damage. This is your health is at risk. And I don't think a guy at 50 should be taking those type of punches because that's somebody's dad.
No.
Right? And second of all, they've taken already a lifetime of getting punched and all this. So it's time to put the gloves down, and just for anybody over the age of 40, even Anderson Silva out there, all those guys that are into their 40s, Come on, just retire. Do something else. Go and talk about the sport. Go do your podcast, whatever the hell it might be. Just don't fight anymore.
It's so sad because I think people are trying to model after that Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather gimmicky type of crossover fighting thing.
Yes.
We've seen James Toney. What happened? Failure. We've seen guys come over from different walks of life. Failure. Unless you're taking MMA seriously and you're fighting in I know this is an MMA fight. Unless you're taking MMA seriously, you need to understand how the striking is different. If you have no idea, that is a problem. Like, Holly Holm came over from boxing, but she was ready to compete as a mixed martial artist. Like, we've seen that. When we go and see a 50-year-old who hasn't fought in years trying to take on a 41-year-old in not just boxing, but dirty boxing. Like, what are we doing here? We got to draw the line somewhere. Like, my dollars aren't going towards that. I'm not going to be watching that fight. The Artem Lobov, at least there's something for me to laugh at. There's nothing funny about watching 50-year-old guys fight in a cage.
No.
Whether it be Tito versus Chuck.
Very sad.
Or these things actually make, because it's like, I want to see the best of the best at their best. I don't want to see archaic shells of themselves. Chuck couldn't move in the cage. Roy Jones Jr. is not. I don't want to see these prideful guys that want to relive their glory days. They're trying to live vicariously through themselves.
Yes.
That's
a lot of times because they don't know what else to do. They miss that adrenaline, I guess. But man, if you're Chuck Liddell, let's say, would you have rather stayed home, kept your name clean? You beat Tito twice. Or, I want to go back in there and like, I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just proving it to myself. Bro, what are you talking about? Why? If you guys go on YouTube and watch this last fight against Tito and go back and watch the old fights or whatever that they had back in the day, you're going to be like, this is not the same guy.
Chuck Liddell was one of my favorite fighters. I think he was my favorite fighter for a very long time because when I was younger, when I was more like, I wasn't as much of a well-rounded, sophisticated mixed martial arts fan, I like to watch guys stand and bang. Yeah. This was a guy who could stop anybody from trying to take him down. His wrestling defense was A1. No one could ever take him down. He never used his wrestling to take a guy down. He used it to stay standing so he could be the Chuck, the Iceman Liddell, and knock everybody out. Okay? Like, that's what we used to watch. That's what I used to love. Not watching some guy his footwork was so very bad, it wasn't fair. I was like, why are you fighting anybody right now? And it's a problem. Our sport, before something bad happens, needs to reform its rules on how old you're allowed to be. Agreed. Yes, you want to call it ageist, call it ageist. I have no problems calling it ageist if you want to. You should not be fighting after age guaranteed 50. Yeah. We saw Couture at 45 try to put up a fight, and he was putting up good fights. He won a championship when he was 40 years old already. Yeah. There needs to be a certain level of activity and a certain level of how many minutes that you've already logged in the cage. Yeah. And there also needs to be an age restriction, a hard age cap where it's just you're just not allowed to fight.
Yeah, even this is generous, but let's say like 42 or something. Around that age, please pack it up, do something else.
There's got to be some other way you can find that adrenaline, that rush. Yeah. You got to have other sources of meaning. Like, this is a little bit of a side thing, but one of my deep philosophies that I have personally is life is about three things: balance, variety, and moderation. You need to have balance in the things that you do. You need to have a variety of ways that you get that same kind of outlet, and you need to have balance, variety, and moderation. If you have moderation in what you do and understand when is too much, that's the key. Yeah. There's no variety in what he does to get that same feeling. There's no balance. I guess he feels imbalanced because he's not getting that outlet in his life. Exactly. So then he turns to what he should have in moderation, which is not fighting. Yeah. And he goes and doesn't do that because he doesn't have other outlets.
Chuck, go coach someone. You can get your adrenaline this way, vicariously. Be the coach. Be there in the corner. I'm sure this is going to give you a lot of adrenaline just to support someone, For coaches, it's a very emotional experience, going to fights for their fighters and stuff like that. So, man, just all those fighters, all the points that you made, I completely agree with. There should be an age cap. And I just don't want to keep seeing legends of the game go out like this.
100%. So Bryce Mitchell, he fought at UFC Nashville. Amazing post-fight conversation that was had. He defeated Bobby Moffett, for anybody wondering, and he became an internet star after his post-fight interview. He was talking about steak, camo, and Arkansas. So this is what he had to say about. This is what he was talking about. First of all, he has a huge beef with the UFC in terms of having camo shorts.
Oh, okay.
He wants to know what he has to do for some damn What do I have to do for some damn camo shorts? He was really upset that he doesn't get camo shorts, and the camo shorts mean a lot to him.
Right.
When he first started training, he got a hole in one of his shorts and everything. And one of his idols, one of the guys who helped him out and even get into the sport, gave him one of the guys he considered a legend in the sport. He's from Arkansas, and he likes to stick to his guns in Arkansas. So might not be a household name for you guys if you go and look him up. But that guy gave Bryce his camo shorts. And camo shorts have been what he wears in all of his fights up until he got into the UFC. And now he really wants camouflage shorts. He is adamant about it. That was really, really funny to watch him talk about that. Another thing he was talking about was he was taking his mom out for steak afterwards. He's like, I'm not letting my mom choose where we're going because she changes her mind halfway when we're there. So I'm taking her to the Outback Steakhouse. I'm not letting her choose. We're going there. Right. Thought that was super cool. He's just being himself in front of the camera. And what I thought was very interesting was he is from Arkansas, and he's like, everyone keeps telling me, if you want to be something big, if you want to do something special, you have to leave Arkansas to be able to see that level of success. I understand where they're coming from, but Bryce certainly acknowledges it, but disagrees vehemently.
Okay.
He says, I don't want to leave Arkansas. I'm from Arkansas. I'm going to represent Arkansas. Every time I'm on this mic, he said in the post-fight interview in the cage, I'm going to mention Arkansas. I rep that place on my sleeve, and he's not going to be leaving that place. So anybody from Arkansas or anything like that, and anybody for anywhere, really, this is one of those guys where he's saying he's sticking true to his guns, sticking true to where he's from, and not forgetting where he came from. And last and most intriguing, I think, and most hilarious is why he became a social media darling afterwards, is Bryce was talking about a motorcycle accident that he was a part of. And obviously, one thing leads to another. You're riding a bike. It's going to be in between your legs. He gets into a car crash on the motorcycle, and at one point, he felt like his balls were ripped off of his body, and he felt like he wasn't sure if his dick was still attached to his body. In his case, he called it wiener. He basically was talking about, he's like, I thought my wiener was ripped off. He's like, I heard a lot of people bleed out if that happens. He's like, you know what? Even if they brought me in, I'd tell them, don't save me. What kind of quality of life are we talking about here?
Yeah.
He said he undid his pants and one of his balls was wrapped around.
Oh my God.
And he had to unwrap it. I was like, yo, this is like, but he was just so nonchalant when he was bringing it all up.
Well, because he's got his dick now.
He was talking about it like he talked about going to the store and grabbing some food.
Jesus.
He's just like, yeah, well, it happened. I had to unwind it. I'm like, unwind it?
Oh my God. And just the image of it.
I was like, buddy, this is too much. But I mean, Bryce Mitchell, somebody to watch out for. I mean, if this guy starts popping off in terms of fighting in the cage, this is going to be a guy who's going to be dropping hilarious, funny one-liners time and time again throughout his MMA career. So again, Bryce Mitchell, check him out, Arkansas's finest, and hopefully we see more from him.
Yeah, hopefully. I wish him all the best. I'm looking forward. I'm actually not that well acquainted with him, but looking forward to his next fights. And Reebok makes some camo shorts.
Yeah, make this guy some damn camo shorts and a special cup because he has to unwind his balls.
Good point.